Good morning, everyone. Glad you guys were all able to join us this morning. I'm going to give it a few minutes to allow everyone to jump on. Many people are probably just seeing it pop up on their computers now, so if you'll bear with us just a couple more moments so that we can get everyone logged in here, that would be great. In the meantime, I'm going to tell you that since we were not able to travel to San Diego, unfortunately, for this, the weather is looking very nice there. It says it's 63 degrees with a high of 70 today, but I do see some rain Friday night, so I didn't even know that happened in San Diego. But for those of you that are tuning in from San Diego, you guys look like you're going to have some great weather for the weekend, so lucky you. I'm also playing in the background. I found a San Diego alternative radio station. So while we're waiting for everyone to log in, we can enjoy the sounds of San Diego alt rock. All right, let's go ahead and get started in the interest of time. I know for some reason it seems like everyone's schedule is just a bit busier as we all work remotely. I think it's a lot of video calls that we sit in all day for 8 hours a day sometimes. So good morning again. I'd like to welcome everyone to the third webinar in the California Trailblazer series presented by Shift3 Technologies. For those of you who have not had the pleasure of attending one of these, we originally designed this as a roadshow. That's the reason why San Diego is in the title of today's session, because we had wanted to physically get down to San Diego and meet all of you face to face, but unfortunately, things changed in our plans and we very quickly pivoted to a webinar series, which actually allows us to get a broader audience. And so we're very happy that you've all joined us this morning. I do want to apologize in advance for those of you that have started to work remotely. You may understand this. I have 3 dogs that live with me in my house, and they sometimes like to talk on these webinars. So if you hear them talking behind me, it's just part of remote working. And so again, I apologize in advance if they start to have some stuff to say that they want to add that I've missed. So this is a 7-part series and was designed to provide you with unique content in each of these sessions that you could immediately put to use in your own organization, whether that be to increase user adoption, increase efficiency, or to get your Salesforce org operating at the levels that you originally expected that it would. Each session has a different keynote speaker and a different training session so that you can attend one of them or you can attend all of them. For this particular session today, we'll be having our keynote by Jeff Scott, who's going to be doing a 2-part series. So he'll do the first part today and then do the second part in a couple weeks with our Irvine edition of the webinar series. So my name is Janae Dubois. I am the Director of Growth Marketing for Shift3 Technologies. And I'm excited again to have you guys all here today. As I said, today's session will have a keynote from Jeff Scott, followed by a training session from Melissa Vadia. I will then open it up for Q&A for both of those speakers. So in the dashboard for GoToWebinar, you will see that there is a questions section. I want to draw your attention to that. And I would encourage you, as the speakers are speaking, going through the information, and there's going to be a lot of information. So definitely ask those questions while they're going through that so that we can get those answered in that Q&A section. And again, it will be at the end of the second speaker, questions for both speakers. So like I said, go ahead and use that question section of the dashboard and I will ask our speakers those questions once we get to that Q&A section. Following the Q&A section, JP Prendergast will give a quick overview of Shift3 technologies. And then at the very end, so you'll want to stay to the very, very end, we're going to give you some information that you don't want to miss. So with that, let me introduce our keynote speaker for today. Jeff Scott, many of you may know him. For Jeff, embracing life is not just a lofty ideal, it is his way of life. He has over 25 years of experience and has been building innovative tech startups in Orange County since 1995. His current focus as CEO and lead technical architect for Software Anywhere, which is a mission-driven cloud software provider building applications designed to drive 100% user adoption on the Salesforce.com platform. So with that, I want to turn it over to Jeff to walk us through today's session.
Perfect. Thanks, Shanae. Good morning, everybody. Let's see here. So I'm excited to do this series. I've been working on this for a while, and the focus of today is going to be really understanding what digital storytelling is. I think a lot of Salesforce admins and people have really gotten to finally embrace Lightning for what it is, but I'm hoping to teach you guys some incredible ways to tell stories and get your users to drive adoption in this case. See, my computer is going to be mean this morning. I have been doing this for about 16 years on the Salesforce platform, and my focus is on training and adoption and really trying to find ways to architect solutions that are 80–90% out of the box. Taking ways to teach and coach people through that process and learning about the Lightning experience in more detail is definitely what I'm most passionate about these days. But like with all of my webinars and teaching experiences, I like to make sure that we put out our anti-safe harbor statement and disclose that we are not Salesforce directly, and things that we teach are things we want you guys to take advantage of and go crazy with. But I did have to modify it. People have asked me over the years to reveal it, but now that we don't have Dreamforce, right? I want you to buy everything I show you, but I don't want you to sign a contract if you've been home with a bottle of wine in hand. So now that you guys are sitting at home and I know your decision makers are taking advantage of being able to drink during the day, I want them to be careful when they're out signing contracts that are coming over e-signature these days. But I think one of the things that I'm struggling with is how do I cancel my 24-hour fitness membership? And somebody sent this to me the other day, and it made me laugh because I've been struggling with my 24-hour fitness cancellation. But I am definitely done with my 90-day trial of 2020. I don't know about you guys, but I think this is a good time to be able to cancel and start over. So a little bit about Software Anywhere. We have been building productivity apps and enterprise frameworks, partnered with now Shift3 Technologies on delivering and creating solutions that are out of the box or custom built in this particular case. So I'm really excited about this partnership and this opportunity to engage and teach in alignment with Shift3 and where they're going as an organization. But today we're going to get into some pretty intense topics around how do you tell digital stories. And all of this is going to be centric around Lightning, of course. We are going to be getting into what I call chapter 1 of this two-part series and going into pretty good depth on how to take advantage of the home page and the different application pages. And in the second part of the series, which is coming in a few weeks, we're going to go really in depth into the record page and some really out of the ordinary design. So I hope you guys can definitely make the time to join in a few weeks to catch the back half of this series. Of course, the big question is how many are all in with Lightning? I am still getting phone calls with people that are struggling with Classic, or I've got one customer who one division is still saying, I will not move from Classic to Lightning, which in this day and age, I hope everybody is pushing past as fast as they can and seeing the value in what the Lightning experience brings to the users. And with the tools or the tricks that I'm going to share with you today, I'm hoping if you've got some stragglers or some people that are still hanging on, that you can take these tricks and take some of these out of the box ideas and get them excited and seeing the value in what is coming with the Lightning changeover and what you can expect to get from it. Now, most of you know, and some of you guys have seen this, the journey to Lightning has not been a walk in the park. I was really skeptical back in 2014, and I was really frustrated going through the journey. The interface was changing, and Salesforce was struggling to try to figure out which direction they were going in. It was a little bit quirky and clunky at times. And somewhere in 2017, when I was giving a lecture up at Google, I realized that there was a breakthrough in what you could do with the Lightning interface as far as how things were laid out and how you could actually put data on the screen. It wasn't perfect. I was still missing a lot of things, and I think I waited another 2 years until we all finally got the recycle bin into Lightning, so we didn't have to toggle back and forth in that case. But somewhere around 2019, I finally got everything fully converted. We started converting all of our customers to Lightning pretty aggressively. And at this point, there's nothing but that going on. And now in 2020, it's just, I have not flipped back to Classic in a really, really long time. And I'm sure some of you and your users are dealing with some of this frustration. I had to create this series from the past, revealing that I was a Salesforce Classic addict. And I had kind of my daily checklist, and I was going through this 10 seconds. I made it, okay, I switched over to Lightning for 10 minutes and then 10 hours. And I was joking, but it was literally, when I got to 10 days, I was really excited. But this is kind of what my journey was like. And for all of you who have to get up every morning and get the strength and the energy to get going, I had to create a prayer. And if you can imagine, my camera was on right now, my arms are fully spread out. And I created this morning, kind of prayer that I say out loud, of course, so that people understand what I'm going through. And that is, Mark, give me the strength to be strong as I make the bold move to click the switch to Lightning experience. As a newly enlightened user, allow me to last longer than 10 hours, possibly 10 days before I get into the dark side of the platform, even if only to visit my dying friend for a brief moment. I now understand that I can only move forward as a Salesforce architect by mourning the loss of my dear friend, Salesforce Classic, and commit to fully embracing the Lightning experience. And this is really what it feels like some days when you're waking up and you're fighting with the interface and you're fighting with the caching and you're fighting with the different things that are new territory for you guys as admins. And the inclination is to turn to code and turn to Lightning components and turn to all these new things that are really exciting and really powerful, but you really got to focus on the out-of-the-box experience and get excited about what's there. Now, of course, we still have users that are struggling, and we like to feel like that we can nudge them or push them or, be there, but, we're not going to just shove them off and hope that they land on the rocks below. We need to kind of create a really cool place for them to land, a nice fluffy mattress of sorts, so that they can actually come into Lightning, see it for what it is very quickly, and feel like they've really got into this new place that they can get excited about. Now, one of the things that I always like to start this off with is, if you're an admin and your users are complaining about data not showing up on the screen or the interface isn't refreshing properly, there is still some struggles with this. And I've done this test even last week to make sure that this is still going on. But there is a special setting behind the scenes, and I'm going to take you over there and I'm going to show you where it is, that I want you guys to actually go ahead and feel comfortable unchecking in this case. And this caching, although it was designed to cache the interface to make it load faster with Lightning, it also is caching data. So often you'll enter a record and you'll go to save it, and then the record's not there until you actually refresh the page, or something doesn't look right in this particular case. And that was really driving me crazy. So I'm going to drop out of here for a second. I'm going to show you guys where this is in setup. It's one of the most counterintuitive pieces of the interface from an admin perspective, and it took a while to figure out what was going on. But if you actually go into the session settings behind the scenes, it's one of the weird pages in the admin interface where it actually starts you at the very bottom, and you actually have to scroll up looking for the settings that you're looking for. Typically, we start at the top of the page, and then we kind of scroll down. But it's hidden. All those things are like tucked way at the top. So we have to go up here, and we need to find the caching section. And usually this box is checked. It says enable secure and persistent browser caching to improve performance. And we want to uncheck that box and actually hit save in this case. And that is going to significantly improve the user experience from a day-to-day perspective. If you make changes as an admin in production, which I know some of you do, if your users are creating records and wanting that experience to be in real time, that one change alone can make a huge difference for your user experience. So hopefully you guys can take advantage of that because the things I'm going to show you are going to require that you make a lot of changes, and then as you refresh the page to see those changes, you want to see them enabled pretty quickly. But here's where we have to start. We have to start first from how do we tell a story? And I think often we just get into the technology and we just start clicking around and throwing out new list views and new tools and reports and saying to the user, hey, we've given you everything that you need, just go do your job. But we've not taken the time to really kind of get to know the end user or get to hang out with them and see what's going on. And I understand that that can be a little more difficult nowadays when you're sitting remotely trying to figure out what is the user doing, why are they in so much trouble, why are they complaining, why is it so difficult for them? And this is something new that we've got to learn how to do with a Google Hangout or a Zoom meeting. And you can actually reverse the lens in this particular case and watch what the user's doing. Ask them questions about what they're clicking on, and as you actually ask them about their process, like how do you enter an account, and why are you putting a contact in this way? You can ask questions and then see them and challenge them. But it's really important that you live inside of the day of the user themselves. You're creating the same records that they're creating. You're following the process that they've been trained to follow from a sales perspective or a support perspective, things like that. But let's say you figured out how the end user works, which sometimes is total insanity to watch. Let's say you've completely understood their process, and on top of that, figured out what they define as success or what the manager defines as success. Ultimately, we do have to get to the point where we know our tool set really, really well. And taking those tools and telling a story in such a way that the user doesn't have to read a manual, doesn't have to feel like they've got to go through training 50 times or watch your video 100 times to figure out how to do one thing. Then we've got to figure out how to do that. And I want to kind of use some examples today of what kinds of things we can do to tell a digital story. But one of the things that I watch is I watch admins and new admins and even really experienced admins, do their work is it's almost like they're afraid to try something new. They're afraid to put a component on the page for fear that it may not work properly, or they don't experiment in that case. And so you got to take fear and kick it aside and really figure out how to just take risks and try some different things. And there's ways you can even take risks with your users in production, which I'm going to show you today. But ultimately, we want to keep it simple as we're going through this as well. So don't just throw every component on the page, but be thinking about how do we keep it simple, how do we keep it elegant, right, and very streamlined for their process. But here's an example of what digital storytelling is to me, and I'll give you kind of the day in the life of a consultant like myself or my team. We often have budgets for projects, and we're billing against those projects. And if we go over budget because we didn't pay attention to what the project budget was, then I have to go back to a customer and say, we went over budget, I need to bill you more money. And it really kind of gets to be a painful process and it becomes very expensive. So how do you make someone aware of what's going on? And so if I go into my instance of Salesforce, one of the challenges that we had was we would search for an account. It didn't really matter what it was. Say we're going to search for Rocket Lab. In this case, we would search for something and we actually had the dollars here and they weren't paying attention to that, but I had a little link here that was just super convenient for them to click and log into a company in this particular case. And they would just do that. They didn't even bother to look at that there was only $1,400 left or there was this or that, and they would actually just click and go right into the customer's org. And instead, what I did is I actually put it here in the compact view. I moved it away from the search results to make it a little less convenient. They had to click one more time in this particular case. But what it did is it forced them to come in and say, oh, we have budget, or hey, we're over budget, or maybe we need to sell something, or maybe we need to get a sense of what's going on. And so from when I can land them on this page, I can actually tell them a lot of stuff in my digital story. I can tell them about what's going on, who the key person is, budgets that we have left, all that kind of stuff, then allow them to just quickly log in and start to do their work. And this one little change, as subtle as that is, to the interface on how they actually had to click one more time, that change to the digital story saved us thousands and thousands of dollars and tons of headaches in that particular case, just by moving things around. So as you watch people make decisions and you watch people look at the interface and they click on things and they're doing certain activities and tasks and things like that, be cognizant of the path that you're taking them down and what are they absorbing when they actually load a page. And we're going to go over each of those components as we get into the series and talk about how it affects the digital story and what someone actually absorbs when they look at a page. So that's the key to digital storytelling, is to really just get inside of the head of your user and find those ways that you can manipulate the interface to streamline the story in this particular case. Now, how do you teach this? How do you actually start? If you guys are even advanced admins, as I go into this very first topic, which is the easiest of the topics, don't really know about all the different components and don't really know about all the different things that you can do with the interface out of the box. And I would assume from all the years I've been doing this that 99% of people, when they log into Salesforce, land on a home page. And very rarely have I seen someone land them somewhere else, but they land on this home page. And the home page is this perfect opportunity to tell a story or draw the user in. And I like to think of my home page as kind of the morning paper. Just like I would read news feeds or different papers. In the morning, I want to be able to look at this page and actually see everything that's going on in my company that's relevant to me, whether I'm in sales, whether I'm in support, a combination of the two. And sometimes you have people that are hybrid users in a smaller company that live in two worlds. And so designing a single homepage or designing a homepage to allow those users to take in all the information they need is a really, really cool way to engage your audience. And one of the biggest things that we forget is, as Salesforce releases new things like the tabs and the accordion components are now available on the homepage, which I'm going to show you. But we often forget about the fact that there's a utility bar at the bottom that can be there not only at the home page, but then follow that user throughout their journey and their experience. So let's take a shot at the home page and let's see if we can do some damage to one of my demo orgs in this particular case. Oops, that's my org. Let's see. Okay, here's my demo org. So one of the first things that I like to teach when we talk about the Lightning interface and just playing around with it is just that. You need to experiment with this and kind of go for it and have fun. And one is we take our home page and we go to edit the page. And for me, what I did is I sat back and I started to just take different components and pieces over here and just drop them into the page just to see what they're going to do, see how they're going to behave. And in the last couple of releases, Salesforce finally added tab support and accordion support for the home page in this case. And so here, if I had my tasks and I had my events broken out like this, that's fine to do it that way. But sometimes I need more space. And so getting to use these tabs for like the support team, and maybe I put their support stuff there, or the sales team, I can use tabs to put different team categories together and put content inside of that tab. I can use the accordion like this down here to make it have more space. And the neat thing about the accordion is that you can customize it quite a bit with the different topics or the different sections. So for example, if you wanted to, you could do tasks and events, or you could do tasks and events in their own section. So either to combine or not. And so to take this accordion and rename it, the labels here, you could say, all right, well, here's my tasks. And we're going to do a custom one for events. So by taking these two components here, I could drop in and feature the tasks if I wanted to, and events maybe are not as important. And so you can kind of pick and choose what's the most important for the user. And you can even actually say, all right, I want the default expanded section for this user to be tasks in this case. And so by organizing it this way, we get a nice compact feel to the layout. Now, people often ask, do I need to have multiple homepage layouts, and do I need to do a lot of things for all the different users? And the answer is not necessarily the case. I think in some of my most complex implementations, I might have 2 homepages to pick from for my audiences. So you don't have to necessarily go crazy with it. You can definitely organize it in such a way that it's available for all the users in the company. So they see kind of a summary of alerts and things that are going on and make it somewhat generic. You can also make it so that support has their own section or sales has their own section in this particular case. But getting them organized so they feel like they actually can pick up this homepage and actually look at it in great detail is and get everything that they need out of it when they start their day is really important. Now, here's the kind of cool trick on how do you do this in such a way so you don't have to have multiple home pages. Let's say you had a classic sales and support team in this instance. One of the neat things that we can do is we can actually use what are called duplicative controls. And so you can actually have more than one of these controls set up this way. So I'm going to show you a cool little trick. And that is I can actually take my tabs here, I'll put another tab set on here, and I'm going to make it very similar to the one that's above. Let's see if I can type today while you guys are watching. So I'm going to do campaigns, and then I'm going to do my support tab here. And you can actually have the same exact components inside of here without a problem. So I could take, for example, one of my favorite ones, which is a list view in this case. So I'm going to drop my list view in here for campaigns. And I've got my demo campaigns, and it's pretty much the same as what's up here. So I can copy this. And the neat thing about this is that I can actually take these controls and I can actually add filters. And so one of the techniques that I use when I'm trying to do this and make one homepage to manage is I will actually add a filter with a little checkbox, for example, on their user record that says this is a support user or this is a sales user. And then I can actually add filters and say, I want this upper component here to be filtered for the marketing team or the sales team. And then I want this one to be filtered for the support team. And then I can tell this to make the support tab the default tab, or I can tell this control make support be first, so they feel like it's more about them instead of marketing or sales. And so by using the filtering capability of the components on my homepage, I can actually have a single homepage to manage and the logic built around it so that everything I'm building in this control here is about support, and then everything I'm building for sales is here. And then I only have to have one page to manage. And where this really comes into play is when you do have those users that actually are playing both roles or need to see everything at one time, maybe for sales and support if I'm in management or I'm an executive user in that case. So the homepage itself allows you a lot of flexibility. It doesn't support every control that you can get on a detailed page or a lightning page, but it has a lot for you to play with. But my big challenge to you guys is to just drag and drop and throw stuff in there and play with it. And even if in a production environment you want to experiment, my recommendation to you would be to drop these things at the bottom of the page or put a filter on these things here that only an admin would see or only you would see. And so you can develop all day long all the components you want, make it look good, show it to another user, and actually then release that filter and push it into production. So it's kind of a way to stage components and stage layouts in such a way that you don't get into trouble with your users. So that's kind of some of the fun with the homepage and just kind of playing around with it and seeing the different things that you can do from a storytelling perspective. But you'll probably notice too is if you look at this here, I have a fairly decent little utility bar down here at the bottom. And all throughout the day, I have this really bad habit of taking sticky notes next to me and writing notes. So I wanted to make the note capability readily available inside of Salesforce so that I could take notes no matter where I was in the interface. So the utility bar is something that you can also incorporate into your Lightning design. It's not just a homepage bar. It's available no matter where the user is. So it's just another little thing that you can do. It feels like it's part of the homepage because it loads right when you load the interface, but it's actually there all the time. So if I go to Chatter or if I go to my demo org, it doesn't really matter. I will always have this utility bar. And for me, during the day, taking notes, logging my time, in here, being able to drag and drop and do different things with my time tracking and the things that I need to do during the day, I want to make sure that this information is readily available to me. I'm in sales. I need to get into my demo orgs. I have bookmarks that I need to get to, all kinds of little things that are down here. I've got little like to-do lists or like documentation things that I can give to people. All kinds of things can be put in the system utility bar. So the way we actually do that is we go behind the scenes, and in the app setup, in the Lightning app builder, when you get into here, you can actually go to the utility items, which are really just supported for desktop, and you can actually add all kinds of utility items in here. And there's quite a few things that you can add. One of my favorite things to add is a rich text component, giving a user a little help file or a little tip and trick, or something that the user uses on a regular basis when they actually are doing their job. So the utility bar is definitely something that I would recommend that you guys play with. It is unique to the app that you're in, so it is kind of nice if you have, for example, you have your sales app for Lightning, or you have a console app in that particular case, depending on how the user works. The utility bar will be unique to the app itself, so you can actually customize it as well. So the two takeaways from this first section is just master the homepage, explore what you can do with it, drag in the components, definitely build a utility bar for yourself and start to play with that. And if you're like me, I'm a little bit on the lazy side when it comes to looking for things. I don't want to go to setup, find the app builder, find the app, and do all that kind of stuff. So I even put little sysadmin links and stuff down here so that I can just go right to the app setup page and things. So you can use the utility bar even as an admin to make it convenient for you to get to maybe your users list or a specific page that you go to on a regular basis. So lots of flexibility with that one. All right, so that is the warm up to this whole thing, and that's how I start by teaching the homepage and the digital storytelling process. This is probably the thing that is my favorite part of this whole series, and that is the actual app page itself. And I think that this was probably the breakthrough for me when I figured out what I could do with a Lightning app page right when it really was available and was mature enough. I realized very quickly that I could make some really powerful stories come to life without writing custom code, without using third-party tools, and having to do a lot of administrative work. And the biggest frustration in Classic or Lightning is, you've got all these list views, and the user has to go to, 50 list views that you might have created or 50 that they've created for themselves. I've seen all kinds of messes. But often a user needs to go to a series of list views, a series of sets of data, and actually be able to take it all in and make a decision in this particular case. And so the Lightning app page itself really has become the end of the standard object page for me. So let me kind of explain what that looks like. You'll notice in my instance of Salesforce, you virtually don't see anything up here that has a classic name. I have a tab for accounts here, but I also have, other tabs that I'm using, revenue, weekly plans, all kinds of things here. And then here's all my standard tabs. But you notice campaigns is way down here. I rarely go to this standard tab because I actually go to the campaigns tab itself here in my instance. And this tab here for me gives me the ability to look at this and see a whole bunch of different campaigns that I'm following, ones that I'm watching, maybe things that are active. Clearly, there's no trips at events that are active these days. Maybe I need to embed a Google spreadsheet of sorts because I'm going to write up some documentation, or I want someone to be able to collaborate with me on some of the things that they need. And then I also have rich text fields at the very bottom that are explaining the different things that you need to know about these campaigns as well. And this is, to me, the most basic change out of a tab and turning a Lightning page into the equivalent of a tab, either by an object like campaigns like this, or maybe it's for sales or sales operations. And in sales operations, I can have accounts that are out of balance, invoices that I need to create, opportunities that need to be processed. So up here, you could think of it like a logical name of an object, and then all the data that's associated with it, or you could think of it by a functional role that somebody plays. And for me, I have marketing, I've got accounts, sales that I got to do. I do the sales operations, and then I've got renewals, and ultimately our invoicing and our AR and collections and everything is all done in Salesforce, but I've developed these tabs at the top by functional role. So let's go over and see if we can't mess up my demo org a little bit more here and see if we can put this into use. So traditionally, I would go to the campaigns tab itself here. And it's going to load this up, and it's going to either be tab that the list view that I'm following, or I've got to sort through the different list views and figure out which one am I supposed to look at and which one is the most productive in this particular case. But that's not exactly a fun way to do this in this instance. So instead of actually having the original tab, I want to actually develop an actual page, a lightning page itself. And so if I actually go into setup, I can get into the page builder. And oops, backwards, hold on a second. Let's go this way. I'm going to just edit this page, go the easy way. So we're going to take this the Lightning app builder, and we're going to take this page, and we're going to kind of deconstruct this and kind of rebuild this particular page in this instance. And the neat thing about it is if you find a page that you've already built out, you can come in here and you can actually just do a new page from here, or you can open the page, or you can open another page, and you can definitely do some things. I'm just going to do a new page just so we can recreate this here. And obviously you have a bunch of different pages. We've already talked about the home page. Then you've got the app page. This is my piece that I like the most. And then in the next seminar, we're going to do the record page in more detail. But we're going to pick app page, and we're going to hit next. I'm going to call this test demo. It doesn't really matter. And then you get this dilemma of, okay, which one do I use? And I will tell you that 99% of the time, I use what's considered the header in 3 regions in this case. And the reason I like this is very specific. How it renders on desktop and how it renders in different things, in different capacities, it works really well. But I have a very special technique that I like to follow, which is on any given page, I want you guys to be thinking about delivering to your users a minimum or a maximum of 3 concepts, 3 sets of data, 3 things to think about. And I'll show you why that comes out pretty cool here in a second with our rich text field technique. So I'm going to choose the header in 3 regions. And it's very basic, obviously, what you get to work with here. But what I try to do here is I actually try to take 3 list views of sorts. And so here I'm going to actually just take a list view. And I'm going to just say, you know, all accounts, it doesn't really matter. And I'm going to put 5 records to display. And then you can turn on different things like this. Do you need to have buttons for them to do different things? Do you need them to be able to search this component? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But so I'll put in accounts for number 1. Then I'll put another one in underneath that. And so now I'm going to put in, let's go to campaigns, I guess. So I'll put in that, and I'll just put in top level campaigns for today. Put that together. Again, I can set the number of records. I tend to start them out with 5 per list just to kind of see how it's going to feel for the user. 10 at the most is what I typically do. Again, do I need them to be able to create a new campaign or do different things? I can turn off the different bars here. And then I might actually put another one in, and I'll do cases. I'm just picking a mixed bag for fun here. So I'll pick cases, and we'll just leave it like that for now. So you basically have 3 different data sets that you can feature on one page. And so if the user wants to look at the accounts and look at certain campaigns and cases in a mixed bag kind of an approach, that's what you can do with this. And so I'm going to save this page, and I'm going to, of course, activate it. And here I'm just going to kind of say activate for all users. I'm not really going to get into a lot of choices. Okay, so now I've got my test demo page in this particular case. So I'm going to go back. And I'm going to add it quickly to my navigation. So I'm going to search for it. So when you actually build your new page and you actually get it up here in the tabs, I always make this mistake. Grab this here, this little drop down, and say add to navbar. And then you can drag it around wherever you want. Oops. And organize it so you can put it next to something that you're working on, or where it fits into the day in the life of that user. And now what you can see is I've got 3 different data concepts pulled together on a single page. It's kind of like a dashboard mashup of sorts, but it's mashing up list views, which are really productive. I can do inline editing. I can do all kinds of things with this in one place. Often the user will get here and go, okay, well, what does this mean? And what is a top-level campaign? And what does all other cases mean? And they start to kind of get confused. And this is where this page and some of these techniques about digital storytelling really kicks into high gear. So let's go back and let's edit this page. And let's assume for a second that I've explained what a top-level campaign is, I don't know, 100 times, put it out in 3 different reference manuals, emailed it 20 times, and the user still doesn't know what a top-level campaign is in this instance. The really neat thing is this technique works really, really well. You drag a rich text field component here right into the in between these 2 list views, and you say tip, top-level campaign equals whatever. Oops. I'm thoroughly convinced I cannot type while actually giving a demo. And obviously they're not going to read that, it's too small. So I can do some really basic things like, maybe I'll make it a red or an orange. Orange is typically a really good alerting color, not setting them off like they've made a mistake in that particular case. So I'll do that. I will make it 24, and I will make it bold. So I can actually put a rich text field in here that explains what the top-level campaign is. So when the user lands here and their eyes are focused right there, there is no way that they could miss that little trick. So that's one technique. So you can put rich text fields in between all your list views and explain what they are or give them little tips and tricks. So we'll leave that one. But what I really like about this header and 3 regions concept is this. If I stick to my model and I say I'm going to have 3 concepts for the user to take in, I conveniently have 3 documentation columns sitting right at the bottom. So I could say, here's your account tips. And then I could put in a bulleted list of all kinds of little tips and things for them to remember in this particular case. So number 1 account tip is, before adding a new account, please remember to search. So things like that I can put in here. I could drag another rich text component in here, and I could actually do the same thing here, and I could say, okay, this is going to be your campaign. Again, that word for some reason, so campaign tips. And I could do the same thing here, and then I can do one more, and I could actually explain the cases tips. So there's a variety of techniques for doing what I call inline documentation. Salesforce has the new tip capability, which pops open this little thing on the side, and you can definitely do some alerts and tips for people, but they tend to read those and then they tend to just do this and get rid of them along the way. So what I like about this inline documentation technique around my digital story is that I actually can leave it in the interface in this particular instance, not totally clutter it up, meaning it doesn't completely consume everybody, but I can actually give them little pointers and little things about the data that they're looking at. I can actually go down here and actually give them more documentation in this particular case. And I don't know about you guys, but I once a week, once a month go look at my campaigns and I work on those and I forget a lot of stuff. And there's a lot of logic to the way that we do our campaigns. And so having these types of things here, little reference guides of how to create a trip or things to think about, questions to ask when I'm setting up an event, these are really important to me, and I don't want to go looking for them. I am not going to go search a knowledge base. I'm not going to go look for somebody to help me out in this particular case. But I want to see everything and work and be productive, and then actually get that help when I need it. Again, one of the cool techniques about this is that maybe a user is a power user and doesn't need these tips. So you could actually filter the tips and tricks and say it's for basic users and get rid of them for the advanced users, so it's not so cluttered. That's easy to do. The other thing that I really like in this particular case is this trick. And this is probably better in a bigger organization where a user will come to this page and they're talking about campaigns. They have questions about campaigns. And instead of maybe a tip here, I'm going to say for support in this particular case, contact Janae. We're going to make Janae the support contact for everything. Shift 3. And I could put her phone number and her home address and her dog names and all those things into this tip here. But now you can actually get your users to know, how do I get the best support? Is it to log a case? Is it to call the marketing director? Is it whatever? That way they're not asking a neighbor who doesn't know anything. They're not bugging somebody else who probably has the wrong information as well. And so you can use these inline documentation techniques in your digital story to start diverting your users to the right person for support or the right resource that's available. And you can do links to other things. You can embed other things at the bottom of the page and so on and so forth. So a lot of flexibility when it comes to a Lightning page in this case. The thing I want you guys to think about, though, is you've got global actions to play with, so you can actually be there and say, oh, I want to create a new event. Or you can definitely mix and match multiple list views. And I've got pages that have 3 list views, and I've got pages that have 6 or 7. But they're designed to kind of show the flow of data through a process. So as I process one record in an account at one list view, then it drops it to the next list view, and I can kind of, define a process that way. But I definitely want you guys to practice with your inline help techniques. And again, going back to our keep it simple process, try to keep it limited. I've seen somebody put 10 or 15 different things on a page, and then the user just gets up and says, too much to take in this instance. So that's what we can do with this app page. And again, there's an endless number of pages that you can be thinking about for support and service. But think of them as an object replacement, and then think of them as a role or a functional role replacement of data, and organize it in such a way that you can get a user focused and get them really excited about Lightning. You cannot do this in Classic without a ton of custom coding. And this is all out of the box drag and drop techniques. So just to give you guys kind of a preview of what the next piece of this looks like, and I'm going to kind of wrap this up here. The neat thing about what's coming in part 2 is we're going to get into the actual record page itself, and we're going to get into what I call the center of the universe strategy. And we're going to talk about ways to keep a user totally engaged when they look at an opportunity or a case, and keep them in that page and getting access to all the data that they need with all these techniques that we're talking about on the record page. So that's going to be a lot of fun coming up. And then the other thing we're going to get into is we're going to completely go out of the ordinary, and I'm going to show you how to use the account object to build an intranet page. And I'm going to show you how to use different types of Lightning pages to tell different stories. And I would love to hear ideas from you guys as well, but I'm going to try to challenge your thinking in the next segment on very advanced record pages without code, and also these out of the ordinary page designs. So that's what's coming on, I think, April 28th. So thank you guys for the time, and look forward to any questions at the end of today.
Great.
Today.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Appreciate that as always. So I'm going to introduce our next speaker that will take us through training on communities. So Melissa Varela is a talented Salesforce administrator for Shift3 Technologies. She also is a co-instructor for GeekWise Academy, and she has a pug, which I love. She's been involved in the tech industry for over a year, and in that short time frame has worn many different hats. From business analysis to project management, Melissa has been exposed to and become proficient in different aspects of technology. She has a background in teaching, which helps her to naturally fit the role of a Salesforce admin. She enjoys making complex topics understandable and gets fulfillment from knowing that she is making work lives easier. So I appreciate Melissa being here today and educating us all on the use of communities in Salesforce. So Melissa, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Give me 1 second to bring this up. For whatever reason, it's not showing on my end. Oh, okay. Let me access the deck. Just give me 1 moment.
Melissa, just let me know when you're ready and I'll switch it back over to you.
Okay, thank you.
Again, just a reminder while Melissa's pulling that up, if you have any questions thus far on Jeff's presentation that he gave, feel free to type your questions in the questions portion of the GoToWebinar dashboard, and I will collect those. And after Melissa is done, we'll do a Q&A for both Melissa and Jeff. So again, use the control panel, the dashboard that GoToWebinar has in place there, and just type in your questions and those will come over to me and we can get those answered during Q&A.
All right, sorry about that, Janae. We're good to go.
All right, let me switch this back over.
Okay, perfect. Present. All right, so welcome everyone. As Janae mentioned, my name is Melissa Varela. I am a Bitwise Salesforce admin. Right before Salesforce, I took web development classes through Geekwise Academy, which is a Bitwise company, and I got invited to join the Salesforce cohort, which is like an internship. And I just got hired full-time as a Bitwise employee under Shift 3 technology, so I'm super excited about that. I've been working with Salesforce for about 10 months. I have a background in teaching public health, and I also have hands-on experience building multiple communities for Bitwise. And also, just like Janae mentioned, I do have a pug. I am a proud pug mom. So if you do hear any barking in the background, that's him, and I just want to apologize in advance if that does happen. All right, so today I'm going to give a brief discussion on communities, just a guide on how to start and things to think about when building a community. Before I get into what Salesforce community is, let me first talk about why every org should use a community. So this is the benefits for using communities. First, communities allow your company to build better relationships. Communities are customizable and can include features your user may need. I'll be saying this over and over again of how customizable communities are. For example, a community can include a frequently asked question forum or Salesforce chatter feature where the users communicate with one another and even your company. Obtaining answers to users' questions can come through a colleague, a company rep, or through the use of a knowledge article. With all of these resources available, this brings in trust and provides a personal experience for the user. Next, another benefit we have is it could save money for your company. A main way how communities can save money is by case deflection. Excuse me. The case deflection feature searches text being entered into the contact support forum and returns relevant articles and discussions. By utilizing case deflection, companies will save time and money by minimizing amounts of cases sent to your company. This will help provide employees time to focus on other work duties. Another way communities can help your company save money is the pricing of licenses. For example, less than 2 weeks ago, we were approached to build a site called Onward California that provides resources to help people of California impacted by job loss during this COVID-19 crisis. We were asked to provide 100 users access to Salesforce to input data into the org. This was a great way Bitwise was able to provide jobs for our local communities, but there was just no way we were able to give them full licenses. In order to save money, we determined that we could accomplish this by building a community and having the users input the data from there. This turned out to be very cost-effective and a practical solution to our problem. Another benefit we have is you can use a community to improve your data. One of the main ways a community can help your company improve data is the support case feature. Rather than having email to case, which would have the case information and details in a body where it is harder to pinpoint issues and keep track of data, the support case feature allows users to populate specific fields and gives more data points to track. The more data your company has, the better decisions your company can make. And then lastly, another benefit is customizable experiences. Communities can be whatever you need them to be. Again, I will repeat this over and over again throughout the presentation. For Bitwise, for example, having different communities has made a huge impact with our customer relationships as well as our employee work processes. We currently have a community for our BLDG team, which includes receptionist, security, and a fleet team. The security team has users inputting data reporting and daily reporting, and our receptionists are logging into the community and inputting their information. This is a great improvement for our receptionists who were previously inputting information into a spreadsheet, which was extremely time consuming. And for our Onward community that I mentioned earlier, this has provided external users to input data that goes directly into our Salesforce org. There's no need for spreadsheets and all of the hassle that brings. A community is definitely a suitable solution for most client and user needs. All right, and now let's go into what is Salesforce Communities. Salesforce Communities Cloud is an online platform designed to connect employees, partners, and customers with personalized experiences connected to your Salesforce org. As I mentioned earlier, you can create multiple communities and experiences within your Salesforce org. Communities are a great way to share information and collaborate with people who are key to business processes. And since communities live in your Salesforce org, you can choose exactly how customers and partners access content and data. And then lastly, with the Community Experience Builder, all you need is a mouse to build your site. All you have to do is use easy point-and-click branding tools to create your interactive community site. And for the next slide, I will go over community licenses. So community licenses, there's a lot of information, so this is just a brief description of community licenses. So we have listed several different community licenses, additions, and types. There's customer licenses, which includes additions, customer community plus, and customer community. We also have partner licenses, and we have employee licenses with additions Lightning Platform Starter and Lightning Platform Plus. And there's also types, which are member-based and login-based. All of these licenses needs one of those types. A member-based license gives access to a community as many times as they want, and a login-based license allows for a certain amount of logins per month. I like to think of the types of licenses of how often the community will be used, and I like to think of the additions of how the levels of access they would need. And then on the side here, we have a short example of different accessibility. So as you can see, leads, campaigns, and opportunities, if your community users need access to those objects, they will need a partner license or an employee license external plus addition. And then the other license would be unavailable to access leads, campaigns, and opportunities. And then for reports, you will need a Community Plus license, Partner Community, or an Employee Lightning External Plus Edition license. So again, community licenses is a lot of information. So I just added a link right here that you can access later on the Trailblazer site, where you can get more information and details for community licenses. Which brings us into best practice. So I just went over licenses. This is a best practice feature. You want to understand what would be best suited for your company, especially when it comes to member-based and login-based licenses. As an example, let's say there's a daycare who has a community for their parents. They have 100 parents who all need access to the community. Some of these parents only log in once a month to submit payments, and other parents log in multiple times a month to ask questions and chat with other parents. And then we have some parents who just don't log in at all, and they pay with a paycheck. The best license to choose for this situation would be the login license, since the number of logins isn't consistent with each parent. The daycare can get 100 logins per month, and that meets their requirements. So this is something to think about when you're deciding on community licenses, what would work best for the company. And this will also be something that is done before you start building your community. You will have your licenses. And then next we have profiles. Excuse me. You want to create a general profile for your community users and create permission sets if need be for specific users. The least number of profiles, the better. And then we have branding. You want to match the look and feel of your company standards or the user standards. You can even use code to make custom changes, and I will show that in just a minute when we build. And then another best practice we have is user-based design. When you're building out your community, you want to think about the user's perspective. A simple, intuitive, and uncluttered design would be the best way to go. All right, so with all of that being said, let's build. So first thing you will need to do is in setup in your org, you need to enable communities and select a domain name. This has already been done on my end, but I will quickly show you where to find it in the quick find. Enter communities. And then you want to go to community settings. And you will see an option that says enable communities, and you would go ahead and check that. And then you would also pick your domain name. Again, I did this already. You want to pick a domain name that users will recognize, and you want to choose a domain name that can be used for all communities. For example, for our Bitwise org, we have Bitwise as the domain name. And for our Onward org, we have Onward as the domain name. You can create a unique URL for each community when adding a unique name at the end of the URL, like Onward California. Here are also some other examples, mycompany.force.com, and then the unique name would be customers. So a best practice that I mentioned earlier was profiles, and how having one general profile for all communities would be best. The community I'm going to build today is a quick replica of our Onward community. So the profile I created is the Onward community user right here. Just give you a quick glimpse of it. So you want to make sure your profile has access to the standard objects that it may need, like accounts, cases, as well as custom objects and fields. So that's just something to pay attention to for your user, that they have access to those objects. And then another important detail to mention is sharing settings. So default external access is private. So community would not be able to see some of these objects. So you want to change some of these, whatever object they need access to public reader write. That's another thing to pay attention to. Okay, so now that we have some configurations completed, let's start building. Let's go back to quick find. Let's enter communities. And let's go to all communities. And we will create a new community. So the first thing you will see is templates. Templates, especially when you are first learning and building a community, can be very helpful. There are different options for whatever type of community you may need. And there is also a little description under each template to give you more information on the best use case. So here's different ones, Aloha, Salesforce tab. You can click each one and it'll give you more information on that template. The template I will be using is the customer account portal. Here's all of the information. Let's go ahead and get started. And again, I'll be replicating the onward communities. So this will be mostly for data entry. You can enter a name. Just say onward presentation. This can be changed later on, as it says right here. Go ahead and create. Oh, it wants me to add a URL. Onward presentation. Okay, create. And then this may take a few minutes, so give it a little time. Shouldn't be much longer. All right, there we go. It's going to take you to the workspaces area. The two main workspaces I've used is the administration and the builder. Let's first take a look at the administration workspace before we start building. So we have settings right here. This is where you'll activate your community. Once you are done building your community, or if you need to test your community, you can go ahead and activate it. When you activate it, it might take a few minutes, but you will get an email confirmation with the URL to the community. Another important tab is the members. And then you want to make sure that you give the users for this community access. So I'm going to give the onward community user profile access to this community. And add it. Let's save. Excuse me. And next we have the login and registration tab, another important feature. This will be the login page for the community users. All right, so let me give you a quick glimpse of the Onward site so you can get an idea of branding and styling we want to match. So here's the Onward site. There's a lot of blue, orange, and this nice logo. Okay, let's go back. Let's upload an image. We'll choose the file. Let's use the white logo. And then you can have the background color for the login page, or you can use an image. I'm going to choose a color. Let's go with the dark blue. And then login button, let's choose that orange to match the site. Let's go ahead and save. All right, we have some administration settings changed. I think it's time to build. So let's go to this corner here and go to the builder. All right. So this is the Salesforce Community Builder. And for this presentation, I will build the home page. The first thing that I will adjust or change is the photo so that we can already start emphasizing the brand of the community. So we have this rich content editor. Let's go ahead and double click that and we can delete this image. And then there's an image feature right here. Go ahead and click that. Upload the image. Let's use the blue one. All right, and let's center it. So we'll click the image, the center. Okay, that looks good to go. And I want this to be the first thing I see when I log into the community. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this to the top. All of these components can be dragged. All right, now let's move on to the navigation menu right here. So when you're building this navigation menu, you want to think about the end user, of course. What will the user need most access to? For our onward community, we want them to create resources. So I'm going ahead and add a resource tab. So edit default navigation. Home is standard, add menu item. Let's call this resource. This is an object. We have it on account, and for list view, we will have essential services. You can also add an image, optional. We'll skip that. And that's something else worth mentioning is list views. Make sure your list views are set up with the right fields you want displayed so that the community users get the best overall experience. All right, and then I also want resource above support. Okay, and for support, we actually created a global action prior to create a case. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to global action. And then this is a new issue. So when the user has any issues, they can go to the support tab, create the case, and it will get sent directly to our Salesforce team. Okay, so let's go ahead. For simplicity and time, let's go ahead and just save the menu. It's all right for now. All right, so right next to the navigation menu, we have this global search box, and even this is customizable. So go ahead and click that. We have the user is able to search for cases, files, knowledge articles if there's any. Let's go ahead and add some more searchable items. We have accounts. They will need to be able to search for accounts because they need it for resources. Let's add another one. Default is accounts. We'll click on accounts. And you can change it from there. Let's go with jobs, save it. Let's add another one, click on accounts. Let's also have them be able to search for URLs. All right, let's save that. That's good enough for now. Close it. And so as you can see on the side right here, for user profile menu, it's this really funky looking long name that's not pleasant to the eye at all. So the way to change that is we have to go back to the administration workspace, go under preferences, and it's for show nicknames. That's what that crazy long funky looking name is. So go ahead and uncheck it, save. Go back to Experience Builder. Let's refresh. And now we just have the first and last name. Looks much better. All right, it's looking pretty good. I think we should add some color to this white bar. All you have to do is go to the theme icon right here on the side. Click colors. As you can see, you can change colors for a lot of the items. This is the header background color. And I am going to cheat and use the eye drop to get the exact color from the website. All right, that looks good. So now that we customize a few things, we can preview what we've made so far. So it's looking pretty good, but there is one thing that's kind of bugging me. It's these white blank spaces on the side of the image. I feel like it would look better if it was all blue. So this can be done, but you will need customized code to fix this issue. So let's go back to Builder. And we can click back to theme on this little drop down. Click Edit CSS. you'll get a warning of how there are other options instead of CSS overrides, but let's go ahead and use overrides. And since I work with a bunch of developers at Shift3, including 2 Salesforce developers on my team, they were able to write some code for me. So I'm going to go ahead and get that really quick. I'm going to copy. And paste. All right, and save. And voila, looks much better. Let's preview it. Yeah, I think that looks much better than the white blank spaces. Okay, thank you to my developers who wrote that code for me. Okay, let's go back to Builder. Now the next component on the page is this tile menu. A tile menu component is connected to the navigation menu. And if I had added the images on the optional portion, the tile menu is where those images would show. And since we didn't add any images, let's go ahead and delete this component. So this is a little trash can right here. Go ahead and delete that. It's okay. And don't worry if you delete a component and decide later you need that feature, because on the left right here, there's this component feature and you can always add it back. All you have to do is just pick one and drag it. There's a lot of components that you can just click and drag, click and drag. It's all in what you want it to be. Okay, so now let's go to the record list. Like I mentioned earlier, list views are really important. Make sure you have them all set up of what your users would want to see. So so I clicked it. You can see how many number of records you want listed. Let's have 8. There's different layouts. I'll show you that in a minute. What object I want. Let's do a count. And let's actually have the list view be my resources so that the users can see what resources they actually created. So this is the standard layout. This is the full layout, which is just like the list view in your org, in your app. And then there's the compact layout, which is a smaller version of the list views with not all of the details. I prefer the standard layout, so I'm going to change it back to that. All right. And then right here is where you can add flows. We have none, so I'm going to go ahead and delete. As well as click links. There's none, so I'm going to go ahead and delete. And again, this community, the whole purpose is for data entry. So we want the users to be able to make resources really quickly with a button. So we created a global action that creates records, and we are going to use the create record button. There it is. So click it. You drag it to wherever you want it to go. Let's rename it to new resource account. The global action we created was a new resource. Let's save, close, and there we go. So let's preview what we've made. It looks pretty good. We have our home. Let's look at the resource tab that we created. And we have the essential services. We have all of the different list views. And then let's also look at the support. This is where the user will be able to send the case. Let's go back to home. So you can add more list views. You can add many different components. This is just a bare minimum of what you can do, but I just wanted to give you an idea of how quickly and accessible and how much you can change your community to however your users or company may need. And then once you activate your community in administration, you will need to publish your community each time you make changes as well, so that it reflects on the actual site. Okay, so that's all I have for you guys today. I hope that helped. And thank you for listening.
All right. Well, thank you, Melissa. That was great. Thank you for walking us all through communities. So now is our Q&A section. So for Jeff and Melissa, I have quite a few questions for you. First question, when will Jeff be doing chapter 2? He will be doing the second part of his presentation on Thursday, April 28th, so 2 weeks from now. We also have a webinar that I'll give you some details on next week. So we're doing one a week. Next question, I believe this is for you, Melissa. Do I need to be a developer to build a community?
That's a great question. Most community builds do not need developer skills. This is true with myself as an admin. I have been able to build communities. If there is a need for more advanced features that require code, I'm lucky enough that I have 2 Salesforce developers on our team, as well as Shift 3 developers that can help with those requirements. So if there's ever someone who's building out a community and they need more customized features and they need that with code, they can definitely reach out to Shift 3, and there's definitely ways we can help with that.
Awesome. All right. How do I get started designing page layouts in Lightning? So that one's definitely for you, Jeff.
Yeah, I think kind of what I said in the presentation is they just need to get in and start editing the Lightning shell page layouts and getting into the Lightning app builder. The more they can experiment with that and try the different page layouts, try the different things, and just play around with it more so than trying to deploy something to production is the best way to get started. There's a couple of trails on Trailhead, but there's not a lot of depth behind it. You just have to play and experiment and see what happens.
Okay. Sounds like fun. Melissa, how secure is a community?
Salesforce community is very secure. Something to consider is when building your community, you want to make sure to give settings and permissions to protect your data and your customers' data. Keeping your data secure is a joint effort between you and Salesforce, but yes, it's very secure.
Okay. And one more, are communities mobile responsive?
Yes, absolutely. Any community built and configured using templates, and the community builder will be mobile responsive out of the box. Users can also access communities through the Salesforce mobile app. However, with the mobile app, communities have access to only Salesforce tabs and the Visualforce pages. But again, they can get the full community through their browser on any mobile device.
Okay, great. Jeff, as a remote admin, how can I watch a user work and learn their process?
Well, there's definitely tons of tools, and if you guys made an investment in Zoom in the stock market, you did really well. But GoToMeeting, Zoom, most of the tools allow you to make the other person a presenter, like what we're using today. But the big thing to look for is one of the tools that actually has a good recording solution. Like Google Hangouts doesn't really have a good recording option, but like Zoom or GoToMeeting does, because when you're watching your users work, it would be good to record those sessions so that you can actually play it back as well, no differently than if they were to play back your training. So getting used to those kinds of tools is the best way to go about watching your users work.
Yeah, all right. And then are there specific tools that people can use to document a process?
Yes, now that we're all really going remote and we don't have whiteboards and things readily available to us, my favorite tool is Lucidchart. If you guys have not played with Lucidchart, it's kind of like Visio from the past or different types of tools. And it is by far, they're a Salesforce user as well, but it is by far the most powerful tool that I've used to be able to collaborate with people. And what I really like about it is you can share images and documents live with people that are not users, and so they can have access to your process documentation and review it with you and collaborate with you. So that's what I would recommend is Lucidchart.
Lucid Shark. Got it. All right, great. I think that covers all of the questions that we had received. So with that, I want to turn it over to JP to talk to you a little bit about Shift3 technologies. JP, let
Thank you,
me
Janae. I
hand
appreciate it.
over. Yeah.
I caught you off guard because I actually took my mic off mute at the appropriate time, huh?
I wasn't ready for that.
I know, no one was, including myself. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much. Then, of course, big thank yous to Jeff and Melissa as well for that great information. And yeah, thanks for I was going to say coming out, but thanks for staying in, but still making the effort to be a part of this and to boost your knowledge on Salesforce. My name is JP Prendergast. I am the Director of Sales for Shift3 Technologies. So just wanted to take a minute, just tell you a little bit about our company Shift3, but also the larger entity that it is a part of, which is called Bitwise Industries. So I'll give you a little bit of backstory on that, and then really want to cover what has been brought to incredible light throughout the course of this call, as far as what the ideal process is for development and in creating these entities within Salesforce, whether it's something that you're doing yourself as an admin, or as Melissa certainly teed me up to point out, if you are in need of developer friends, making sure that they're helping you to get to where you need to go, and the approach that should be taken to make sure that we do arrive there. So, and Janae, let's see, I'm trying to move the deck on this one. There we go, perfect. All right. So as clearly stated there, Shift3 is a Bitwise Industries company. Bitwise is really more of a technology movement even than it is a company in California's Central Valley. Started in Fresno about 7 years ago with the idea that utilizing technology to revitalize the area. And again, as we know, technology is not the ends, but the means to the end. And so the approach that we took was a three-pronged one that we refer to as place, education, and then execution, or really sort of proof of concept. So the place side represents buildings that we own in downtown Fresno and have expanded from there into locations in Bakersfield and Merced, as well as a fourth city that we will be announcing later this year. The point of those was to really rally our tech community, create something larger than the sum of its parts. So for Fresno in particular, we had a very solid tech community before Bitwise came around. The challenge that it faced is that these companies would feel invariably that they had reached a point where if you want to continue to grow, if you want your business to be successful, you have to take it to a larger market. You have to get it out of Fresno and the Central Valley. And so the point of the buildings was to be that rallying place to create a tech community, and that we can do it mentality, again, companies and entities and individuals contributing to something greater than the sum of their parts. So that represents the place side of Bitwise. The education side is the GeekWise Academy. And so when we told companies, look, you can stay in Fresno and you can grow, you can relocate to Fresno from larger markets, but you're able to not just sustain, but again, grow your business. And so a part of the promise that we had to fulfill on that was making sure that we had the human resources to do it, which would be developers and coders and such, and thus the launching of GeekWise Academy. GeekWise is currently the leading vocational school in the US right now for developers and coders. I believe we're at 6,000 graduates going into this summer, which will be their 7-year anniversary. So that's been obviously a great source for growth for individuals and for companies as well. And then the execution, the proof of concept, that would be Shift3, which is a custom software development firm. I think it was sort of, we wanted to really round things out by pointing out you can host world-class companies here in the Central Valley. You can provide world-class talent in developers, and people like Melissa that are doing their technical training and now going on to do great things. I mean, Onward California is connecting people displaced by the coronavirus with jobs and with resources. So, great opportunities for that. And then also to demonstrate that you can create world-class software with the resources that we had at hand. So that is more or less the Bitwise ecosystem. As far as Shift 3, Shift 3 is a custom software development firm. And whoops, sorry about that. One slide further than I meant to. There we go. So as we mentioned, headquartered in Fresno, started off in custom software development, and through those experiences, learned a lot of lessons that we apply to our Salesforce division now as well. As Melissa said, it's good to have developer friends in these circumstances on Salesforce, and so as Jeff mentioned as well, and that's been such a great lead into everything that I wanted to talk about, is really taking the time and getting to understand the use case. How are people using their technology now? How are they utilizing Salesforce? What are the goals and the objectives? And how do we look at that process, analyze it, make it better, and then develop the solutions to reach those goals. So again, the lessons that we've learned from our custom software development now put into our Salesforce team as well, which is going on to do amazing things already. And also a focus that we have is as far as diversity in the workplace. We are designed as a company, Bitwise as a whole, to create opportunities for companies to grow, for individuals to grow. If you look at our statistics, obviously, these are not numbers that you normally see prevalent in technology companies. And so we really do make a concerted effort to reach out to those that have not historically been reached out to, which has created an incredibly diverse workforce, and certainly one of the most diverse in the tech industry for sure. So something that we're certainly very proud about. Little bit about our team. We have, as you saw on the slide that was there for a moment before, there we go. Irma is our CEO and also one of the founders of Bitwise Industries 7 years ago, and it was just an idea. Janae, who of course put on this session today, and thank you, Janae, for getting everyone together and getting the word out. On the development side, we have Chris and Corey, obviously, and just to sort of explain their roles, Chris is more on the delivery side as far as getting the projects out the door, making sure that we're executing, understanding our clients' objectives and creating solutions, be they Salesforce or custom software, but again, very firmly understanding what it is we're looking to do before we get into it. And then Corey's job with the company is really making sure that while we are producing and turning things out, we're continuing to do research on best practices so that we're developing internal tools, we're utilizing new things that are out there to make sure that we're delivering as efficiently as possible and creating the best client experience possible. So a little bit about the dual approach that we have in the two of them. As far as the business development side, as I mentioned, I am the director of sales for Shift 3. So overseeing the custom as well as what we're doing on Salesforce. And then Amber Wood, who is one of our dedicated Salesforce solutions individuals and responsible for really getting in and like I said, talking about the story and what you want to accomplish before we get into any of the technical details, understanding the objectives as clearly as possible. So a little bit about our team. As far as advantages that we've had, again, having done custom software for as long as we have and having had an incredibly successful track record with it, what are the takeaways that we're applying now specifically to Salesforce? And as mentioned, planning, being in front of it, obviously understanding the objectives before we start chasing them. And I know you hear that and it sounds intuitive, but I'm sure that all of us have had the opportunity of working with developers or with someone on the Salesforce side that's charging ahead a bit, and there seems to be that disconnect between what's being built and the problem that it was designed to address. So we've certainly developed a very unique process that I'll get into in just a moment to address that. And then again, looking at our competencies across the board from custom software development. In the case of Salesforce, we're looking primarily at staff augmentations in that we have an application in Salesforce that is deployed, that is in motion, that is usually used anytime you get something new. Of course, you want to take it out of the box and start applying it, and that's where you can sometimes end up in user role situations like Jeff was mentioning, where you definitely want to record them because that the application is being used in a way that maybe meets the task at hand, but certainly gives you a number of unnecessary clicks along the way to do it. And so that's where, really, again, the understanding is absolutely crucial, and how we can complement a application that is in motion, and understanding, the workflows and the particular details of it. And again, being here in California is great as well. So services, as we mentioned, the top three there being key for us, the Salesforce, the staff aug to accomplish it on the other custom software development. You saw that a bit on the onward, where translating it into maybe a front end that's working with WordPress that ties into Salesforce, or basically the other tools around it that may be better solutions in certain use cases than using something that is exclusively Salesforce. There's obviously a lot of APIs, application program interfaces, that would allow us to construct, and whereas certain aspects of Salesforce may not be great on mobile, looking at what does it look like to create an interface that will still gather that data and allow for the input fields and the extraction of data that you need, but is not necessarily a direct integration with Salesforce, but sits on top of it and really addresses your use case. So that's a little bit about some of the work that we've done. So this is really, again, what we've been talking about all day today. So I guess really just kind of shining a particular light on what the ideal journey is for a client in the Salesforce space. So just to walk through it, for us, it's engagement to start off with. We are looking at, again, Melissa saying developer friends. It's absolutely crucial to have them be friends, because these are long-term relationships, be they in Salesforce or in custom software development. Shift3 has a number of clients that we've worked with now for 3-4 years. So really taking the time initially to make sure that we have a good match before we're really getting in the project is absolutely crucial, because these are in fact long-term relationships. From there, we go into immersion. For us on the Salesforce side, that is our health assessment, which is looking at not just the optimizer report that you can run, because that is a great snapshot in time and obviously a great source of data from which to pull, but doesn't take into account what are future goals and objectives, what are some of the more nuanced things as far as, again, as Jeff was mentioning with the user stories, how they're utilizing Salesforce. And that requires a greater degree of analysis as far as engaging with clients and really understanding the objectives for now and also for the future, but also understanding the technology, and then taking all of that back to the proverbial lab, analyzing it, and then coming back with Envision, which is we assess the following things. We understood these goals from you. We took it back and we put together what we think is a plan that addresses it. And then Envision is really validation. Did we hit the mark? Did we miss something? And translating the documents to say, well, when we say we're going to accomplish this, what it will do is this. And here's where we find ourselves sometimes in a loop, and I mean that in the best way possible, just as far as, okay, if we didn't have a clear understanding, let's talk about that. Maybe let's dig a little bit deeper. Let's get into a use case maybe that we didn't think out, but we get there through these conversations. But again, teeing things up so that we make sure we're talking about as much as possible up front. And as Jeff said, that these conversations, of course, help us to make sure that we're staying on budget and that we are delivering what's expected. So from there, we get into the execution phase. Once we finalize what it is we plan to do together, then it is a matter of actually executing it. And so whereas during the Envision, we're in immersion, we're really extracting as much as we can from our clients. As we get into execution and validation, we're now putting more things in front of the clients and making sure that, yes, this is what we talked about. Do you agree that this meets those goals? Are there things that we can change as we've taken it out of the abstract and the hypothetical and put it in front of you? Now that you have that, it always presents questions that didn't come up before when you were just sort of imagining it and getting into people's hands and really understanding the details of the work. And so in the same way that we go back and forth a bit in immersion and in vision, we do the same in execution and validation, which is to say, here's what we're delivering in a development environment. So, we're not going live and experimenting on a tool that you're using and relying on. But, how do we demonstrate what we believe is the solution, getting your feedback and just incorporating it and being in the loop there. And then finally, delivery, which is to take it out of the development environment and really put it in the hands of the end users, and making sure that everything that we developed in the test environment does in fact work in production as well. So that's more or less, again, processes that we've learned through custom software development and applying that now to Salesforce as well, just because, as you all know, there's such an incredibly high degree of configuration that it is borderline customization, honestly. And the investment that comes with Salesforce as far as financial investment, but time and energy, and then just the reliance you have on this really running your business, making sure that we understand all of that and that we are addressing that in the best way possible and making sure you're getting the most out of it. So that is more or less all I have on the customer journey and as Shift 3 as a whole. Again, want to thank everyone for coming out today and for our great speakers, for Jeff and Melissa, incredibly insightful stuff, and was certainly resonating, I'm sure, with everyone on the webinar, but also with me as well, thinking about how our approach definitely uses a lot of these aspects that were on the call today. So thank you again. And with that, we'll turn it over to Janae.
Awesome. Thank you so much, JP. And again, appreciate everyone staying on. As I said at the beginning, there some information we want to give you towards the end part here. So at the conclusion of the webinar, before you completely close out of GoToWebinar, you will be taken to a survey. That survey is only going to collect your name and mailing address. Since we are all working remote for the most part, we don't have your home address. So if you would like to receive a gift from us for attending today, if this is your first webinar, go ahead and fill that out. That information will be sent to me and I will send you a small thank you gift for attending today. As I said, we are doing webinars each week. And so next week we have our webinar on Thursday, April 23rd at 9 a.m. This will be featuring a keynote from Jamin Brazil, who is the CEO of Hub UX, and David Aquina, a certified Salesforce administrator from Shift 3 Technologies. So I encourage you to register for that one now so that you can get that on your calendars for next week. Again, Jeff Scott will be doing his chapter 2 on digital storyteller, mastering the secret art of lightning pages, at the Irvine webinar on Thursday, April 28th. So all details about the future webinars can be found at caltrailblazers.com. And with that, I will give you back, it looks like you get 18 minutes of your life back today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, or you can reach out to JP at the information on the screen there. Again, I hope you have a great day. And if you're not in San Diego, we have Amber and Jeff in that direction. So I hope that they enjoy their 70-degree weather today. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.